All right. Hey,
So
good
much.
afternoon, everybody. Lisa Parento here, the 2021 New England Region President for the Residential Real Estate Council. So excited to have our third Mastermind Monday of 2021. And as we will be doing throughout the months, the third week, however that falls, even if there's a holiday, the third week that we're on will be a focus on our members. And it's going to take all different formats. We'll be doing all different things that we can with membership, but Karina Robles, our membership chair for 2021, will be pretty much conducting sort of this conversation interview with our very special guest. I'm so excited to have Tracey Fiorelli here this morning. Tracey is not only an amazing top producing realtor, but has been a volunteer at really every level of our association. And we kind of wanted to dig into a little bit about, and by the way, has a family and a husband and, she just kind of does everything. So really wanted to, talk about that, bring that out, put that on the table and learn more about that, and sort of empower others around that. So again, so excited to be here with everyone. Thank you so much for my leadership team for supporting us, Christine, our CTO. And now I'd like to turn it over to Karina.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much, Lisa. And thank you, Tracey, for accepting this invitation. I looked at your resume and wow, to say the least, right? So first of all, you've been in business 19 years. Is that correct?
Correct.
And you've been with Janice Mitchell since 2003.
She was the only broker I went to, yes.
Wow. And you've been top producer since then.
15 years this year, top producer.
And like Lisa said, a mom, a wife, a realtor, a volunteer into all of our organizations here. Because I see here your professional associations, you are part of the MAR Board of Directors. You are part of CMAR Board of Directors, member of Government Affairs, member of Grievance, member of Community Action. And you were 2019 president for the Realtor Associations of Central Massachusetts. On top of that, keeping your productivity going, that train still going, right? So that is definitely very amazing. Sometimes myself, I drop the ball and I'm like, how am I going to balance everything? So today we want to pick at your brain, coming from a top producer and someone who it's, I dare to say that community service to the professional, background of being a realtor, you are very involved. I've seen you at practically all the meetings, and you're there, and you're always saying yes to everything that you are asked to join. So my question to you is this: how did you get started in real estate?
Well, first, thank you for having me today. I was so excited when I got the invitation to be part of this. I'm very appreciative and more than happy to chat with everyone today. So thank you for thinking of me. Truthfully, real estate was not my longtime passion or something I ever thought about doing as a career. My husband was actually taking the course. He was looking for a career change. And, he would come home after, the class, and I'd have the book and I'd be like, do you know, for some reason, the word chattel resonated with me. I'm like, do you know what chattel is? Like, did you study that word? And I remember like it was yesterday saying this to him. And he was like, yeah, chattel, I get it. Okay. And every time he'd come home, I'd be like, let me see your book. Like, what did you learn today? And after doing that for 2 weeks, he said, when's the last time you've been in school? And I'm like, oh God, 1993. Why? He says, well, I spoke to Nick Storrs of Century 21 at the time, which is who he took the course from. And he said, you're starting next week. You are now going to be 3 weeks behind in class, but he'll let you take my space. Good luck. I think this is something that you might enjoy. And at the time I was in hotel sales and, 365 days a week, there's, 24 hours a day it's open. And I thought I would actually work less. It would be an easy career to transition as a mother at the time of just one. But yeah, that was what I had actually thought. And I jumped into the class, I passed my test, and here I am today.
Wow, amazing. That's awesome. And what are some of the early challenges that you had in the beginning of your career?
Balance was tough for me in the beginning, because I am an all-in person. Like if I'm going to do it, I'm doing it 100%. And it wasn't until later in my career I realized that, certain things definitely have to sacrifice. If you make a commitment to say, I'm going to do this 100%, there's certain things that you do have to sacrifice. For me, it was, I'm maybe not going to cook dinner quite so much. I'm going to do takeout. Maybe the cleaning and laundry kind of gets put on the back burner for a bit. I prioritized very quickly that my business was going to be a major focus, but I tried really hard to not let my family suffer. Like I would be on the baseball field watching my son play baseball at a very young age, and in between innings answering the phone. When he was in high school playing high school football, he said to me, Mom, maybe not so much in a dress and heels after your open house. Didn't realize that was something that bothered my son when he was younger, that, his mom is real estate ready at the football game, running down the sidelines in her heels and a dress between open houses. But I never missed those things. And that was important to me.
So balance then. And how did you generate business, being new in the industry back then?
The industry I started, or the market I started in, was similar to what it is now, where it was very active. The time we didn't have all of this social media. So you had to do everything more paper, hands-on. We did have MLS, so it wasn't the book that you had to open up to see what houses were for sale, but it was all word of mouth. Like you would do an open house and that people just came, they drove around looking for signs. So I had no listings. I would beg anyone at the office, can I do an open house for you? Can I go to your showings with you and learn how you do appointments? But open houses every weekend, I did 2 of them. And even now I still do my own open houses.
That's wonderful. So now you're new in the industry. You are a mom and a wife, and obviously busy market, right? As like you said, like right now we are in. What got you involved in to become a CRS? Can you tell us how was your journey in becoming a CRS?
So truthfully, CRS is a designation I'd always wanted. Education for me was very important because I wanted to always be relevant and I wanted to learn. And I think the designation courses that we have through our national association is huge. And some of these things give you an opportunity to stay connected. CRS was always one that I truly felt when I got this designation, like I've made it, because it does make you accountable. Like you have to have productivity. You have to maintain your designation. To me, it just had more weight than some of the other ones. And that was really, really important to me. I feel that CRS has credibility and it has a stronger respect factor, if you will, than some of the other designations that, you can take in 2 days and get like a certification and then nothing's done with it. It's just collecting letters. This is more engaged. And, when I got this designation, I was like, woohoo, I arrived. Now, I didn't get it until 2 or 3 years ago. But it was always something that was on my goal list to do.
That's wonderful. So two or 3 years ago, you became a designee. Wow, yeah. Wonderful.
Yeah.
And so with that being said, you're pretty well established now. How do you maintain your business?
A lot of what I'm doing. So when I started and doing the open houses, like I said, I still do them. I still do postcard mailers. I sit in my living room and I label my mailers. And, 4 times a year, I do a 700-piece mailer. And it takes me about a week to do. And people say, like, that is not the best use of your time. But I have multiple databases. And when I do that, like my thank you portion of it to my past clients, as I'm doing the label, I'm like, oh yeah, I remember she bought that brown house and was going to redo the bathroom. And when I see them in my local community at the grocery store, and it'll click with me 4 times a year to be like, oh, that person, I wonder if they did their bathroom. And then I run into them and I can reconnect because I'm seeing their name all the time. If I let someone else do my mailers for me, I'm not connecting with them anymore. I also do a cookie delivery every Christmas. So anyone who has bought a house from me in 19 years, I deliver cookies to. The first time I started doing this, I made the cookies. That only lasted 1 year. I now have, a professional baker do the cookies and the packaging for me, but I still do the delivery. So I'm still being refreshed with those people. I've never changed from doing the paper print as far as postcards, the cookie delivery. I've been doing that for about 16 years. The baseball magnets and, that type of stuff with sports, anything that I can put myself in front of people and make them remember me. And I think that is really important to stay connected. And you just have to find a way to stay connected. I'm not a huge social media person. I try, but that's not my main focus.
Yeah. So with that, also, that was one of the questions. How do you stay in touch with your past clients? The cookie, that's amazing. That's a personal touch. And I think in this industry, we tend to forget about that personal touch. And, our clients do appreciate that, because a year or 2 years or 3 years can pass. And the fact that you're still doing that, I bet you they still look forward to your cookies every year. So that's amazing.
It's nice because like this year, with it being COVID, like some people were like, oh my God, you still delivered cookies. And it takes me a week. Like I do 25 to 30 packages a day. Wow. And, going around. So by the time I'm done, I'm like, oh, here's the cookies because I'm exhausted by them. Plus I've eaten many of them along the way. The feedback, like one person said, my 7-year-old son every year goes to Tracey bring our cookies. And it's something the kids look forward to as well, which makes me feel good.
That's awesome. That's wonderful. So how you handle how many transactions a year, roughly?
This year I will have done 68.
68.
But
really
I average somewhere between 50. My best year ever was 89. But somewhere between the 50 and 89 range.
And now, what tips do you have for someone to handle that many by themselves?
You have to be organized. Time management is really important. I have tracker sheets. I'm a paper person. Like I'm old school. You're not going to change that. I can't go all digital. I have tracker sheets that say has the smoke certificate been ordered with the date? And it's like a month in a glance that, I made. And that's very helpful for me because I look at it and go, oh, I haven't checked this off. I'm a huge list person. I make lists every morning or the night before, like, what am I going to do for the next day? And, I might not sell a house in that day, but I still feel like I've accomplished something because I took everything off my list. I think that is really important to do. I also have a 15-minute rule that, and if my husband can hear me in the background, he's going to be laughing. I'm 15 minutes early for every real estate appointment. I am about a half an hour late for every personal appointment. So if I say when I'm going to be home for 5 o'clock, like it's really, I'm going to be home at 5:30 with the takeout. But by doing 15 minutes early, I'm not rushed when a client gets there. It gives me 15 minutes of uninterrupted time that I can return phone calls, check emails, check text messages. And I'm not waiting to the end of the day where I'm now feeling overwhelmed that, wow, I have, 10 phone calls to return and how many emails came in. I'm right on top of them all the time. And I know some people that doesn't work for. Like I have a very good friend. She's like, I check messages 3 times a day and I return calls in that half hour. I think you have to find what works for you and the way that you do business.
Correct. And Tracey, I'm looking at your resume here, and like you said, you 2 to 3 years ago, you became a CRS. But can you give us a little bit and how was your journey in getting involved with the local Realtor Association and state association? And how did you find that helped you grow your business?
I think the big thing with volunteering is if you look at people who volunteer, they're typically successful people. And if you surround yourself by successful people, you strive to be better. And when very early on, when I was volunteering at the local association, I was at maybe like an awards event that we had, and, looking at the brochure, and I was like, oh, my first couple of years have been pretty good. I want to give back in some way. And I felt volunteering was a way to give back. What I didn't realize is that yes, I was giving back my time, but it was making me so much better as a realtor, as someone who refers business, as staying educated and relevant. That's been a big piece of my business. And again, like I sit at a table and look around, and here I was less than 5 years in, and I'm sitting across from someone who's been doing it for 15 years. I want to see how that person interacts. I want to see how their business goes, because you can only be better. And that's what volunteering really, it forced me to be better. And then when you get different titles, I received an award for Realtor of the Year. That was
2015.
That was one of my hardest years ever, because every day when I put that pin on, I would say, like, I have to be great. People expect me to be really good because I got that award. It pushes you to another level. Mm-hmm. And as I continued to volunteer and continue to move up the ladder, like I say, like, oh, I have to make sure, like, I'm always doing the best I can do, because people now look at your resume after you've been president or been at a higher position.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. What personally I love is about joining is that I find that we are in a table with people that want to help you grow, mm-hmm. that challenge you to grow and believe in you. CRS is a family to me, and I really appreciate the challenge that they have given me personally. But for yourself, Tracey, how do you feel that becoming a CRS changed your career?
I feel it made me more relevant. It puts me on a higher level of professionalism to have this designation. I haven't had the opportunity to really take advantage of too much of what CRS offers as far as celebration, because of COVID. And when I got it, it was the year that I was president. So I was a little busy with that. But I'm really looking forward to being more engaged, with this designation. But it makes you more relevant with your clients. Like, I have the backing of CRS, which not a lot of realtors have. When you look at the big picture, we're well over 1 million members as realtors, and, such a small percentage being CRS members. I use that in my marketing, and it's been great to make me stand out from someone else in my community who I might be competing against.
Yeah. What advice do you give to a new member or a new designee, in both, becoming a CRS, right? And also, like what you just said, you use it in your marketing, right? So that's an advantage. But what advice would you give someone who's contemplating, well, I'm not sure, is that for me? What would you say to them?
If you're a realtor, it's for you. This is a designation that really sets you apart. And if you want to be set apart, and if you want to stand out, CRS is the designation that you really want to have. It says it right in there. You're a specialist. You're a specialist in residential real estate. Yeah, exactly. What more could you possibly want for a designation?
So yeah, exactly. Let me see, what else do we have here?
That's our new byline, Tracey Fiorelli. Oh my gosh, I just love that. Hey, yeah. I got a couple questions, and I wanted to open it up. Karina, do you mind if I throw a couple of questions
take the floor? Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about what you do for self-care. How do you manage, we all know, in fact, someone in our group, that was their word for 2021. What do you do to feed that's part of inside of you that allows you to keep on going and being the best that you can be?
It took me a while to learn. It really did, because I used to go, 7 days a week, 100 miles an hour, no stop. I didn't know to put my phone down for a little bit to enjoy dinner. Again, at the baseball field, in between innings, I'm on the phone working. Are you really enjoying what's around you? And it wasn't until probably the year before I was president when I really had to look at all of my time management and go, I have to have time for me. I have to make sure that I make special time for my family, where there is not a lot of real estate. So, I take a day or two off a week where, the day before, if I know it's coming, that's going to be a long day for me. I'm going to work a 10-hour day if that's what I need to do to, run. I love the beach, to run to Maine, for a night, to go to my favorite restaurant with my husband, to go see my kids. It took a while for me to learn that, but that's my self-care, because that is what I enjoy doing.
And it does take a while to really understand that there's a reason that they recommend putting on the oxygen mask yourself first, that you can't help anybody else until you really feed your soul. And it takes, everybody has a different journey on that. We should do a topic, a mastermind topic sometime on whatever, what was that turning point for everybody? Because I think people can remember maybe back, when they made that, but and we have to keep revisiting. I don't know about you, but I have to keep revisiting it. I have to keep putting that on my list every year when I'm doing my business planning. And, they always suggest that, right? Put in that time first.
Mm-hmm.
And then put everything else in. And I don't always do that, but I know that's what I'm supposed to be doing. So it sounds like, you're working on that same thing. So let me ask you, do you have an admin or a TC, or you're doing 60 odd plus transactions. What kind of system around you do you have?
It's just me. I do not have an assistant. I represent both buyers and sellers. I do not have a buyer agent that works with me. It's just me. And part of it is just time management. And I think when you set certain expectations with your clients early on, that helps you save time. That way they know what to expect from you. They know how you work, how they work. Communication is really, really important to me, and making all of my clients feel that they are important. My mission is to help them, and doing so through clear communication. Text messaging has made life a lot easier. It's a lot quicker than picking up the phone, although I do love talking to people. I think that's been very helpful. And some of the technology that we have, it wasn't until, truthfully, COVID that I started using electronic signatures. And yes, I'm not proud, but it's true. I don't know what's wrong with me, but I fight technology. And, I had to learn that during COVID. The amount of hours that has freed up for me when I used to drive back and forth to people's houses to get signatures on documents. So I think you have to kind of look at some of the things that are out there to make it easy for you, with still being relevant to your clients. Because I think it's easy to get caught up in a lot of technology. And now, what are you really doing? What is your place as a realtor? Because technology is doing it all for you.
Right. That was kind of one of the questions I was going to ask, if there, this last year, just a couple of questions about this last year, because I think it really has given all of us an opportunity to really examine everything that we did and the way things always were done. And we don't do we're not doing things the way that we used to. So tell me something that you said e-signatures, but also if you can throw something else out that really, that you did as a result of the pandemic, that impacted your business in a positive way for this year.
I'm primarily a heavy listing agent versus buyer agent. I do represent buyers, but most of my business is being a seller's agent. Doing time blocking for showings. Up until COVID, if someone said, I want to look at this house at 1:00 and then again at 4:00 and, and then at 8:00, for some reason, my market really loves accompanied showings. So I was just back and forth nonstop. And, instead going, we're going to do showings from 12 to 4 on Monday. And every 30 minutes, we'll give you plenty of time. We're not going to overlap. That has really been life-changing for me as a listing agent.
That is a nugget that I think is really awesome, and definitely something that we're going to take, from that. And then just tell me my last question, then I want to open it up to the group to ask some questions if they have any. What is one blessing that you found from last year?
A blessing from what?
From pandemic, from the last year that you're taking into this year. Just a blessing that you pulled from our shared experience.
Gratefulness. I've truly been grateful. it puts a lot into perspective when you see how people's lives have been affected by this horrible pandemic and what it's done to businesses. Just really grateful that I have my health, my family has their health, and that real estate has continued. Because I've seen a lot of businesses, especially the restaurant businesses, fail, and some places I've loved to go to over the years are no longer an option to go to. So I've been very grateful and appreciative, more so than I have been years in the past.
Yeah, I mean that's awesome. I think that's probably shared with many of us, that we were given the opportunity to turn those challenges into ways to be grateful for what we have. So now I'd like to open it up. If anyone has a question that they would like to bring forward to Tracey, we'd love to open it up to the group.
I did see a question here from Kim. It says, what is the percentage of realtors who are CRS now? Do we happen to know that? I know that when I first considered it and was working my way to become a designee, it was 3%.
Yep, and that's approximately the same, maybe even a little bit less, about 3% of total realtors.
In the nation, yeah, nationwide. Wow.
And the only designation based on production as well as education.
Correct. And that's, I really believe, while the questions come, if anybody has a question for Tracey, but I wanted to also say that that's why it's very important. And I really think that education was big in continuing to work in real estate, because it's ever changing constantly, and especially now, right? And the education that we get from CRS, all the webinars and the trainings that they offer definitely help keep the engine going.
And I think it's important when you have designations or when you're part of something like RPAC, that you network within those groups. Again, not a big social media person, but I love the private groups that recognize the certain designations, because that's where I go to for referrals. If I have something, I have a list that I go down and go, okay, I'm going to start with this group. And that is now how I do most of my referral business, versus before it was, I saw this person one time. Now I look at what their background is, what designation they have, and what they're part of.
Absolutely. That reminds me, thank you, Tracey. Everybody needs to make it a responsibility of theirs to go on We Are CRS and check out your profile. I mean, mine wasn't even completely aligned. So it really is important to go on there and make sure that you have a current picture, but also, and they will, if you just email community@crs.com, they will jump right on whatever change that is that needs to be made. But for example, major investor is something that can be indicated on crs.com, so that if that is important to you, that you give a referral, not only to a CRS, but to a major investor, that is noted on there. So just make sure that it is accurate and everything that needs to be on there. So I think we still have time for one more question. Kurt Thompson, I think you had a question.
Well, thank you, Lisa. And Tracey, thank you so much for sharing with us. I have always been very impressed by you, both personally and professionally. And my question comes down to time frame, because I'm assuming you're working 24 hours a day without sleep. To be able to do that level of volume that you're doing and be actively involved in all the other volunteer leadership opportunities you have been, what does your day look like? Are you doing a lot of that work in the morning? Are you doing in the evening? Kind of how do you get the work done that allows you to support a 60 transaction business?
So, probably 5 years ago. So being president of my association really put me in line with my time management, because I had to. That was the biggest chunk of volunteering I did. And that's when I put the 15-minute rule in effect. That's been very helpful for me. But I start my day, and I'm not proud to say the first thing I do is I look at my phone. And I don't get up at 5 o'clock in the morning. Like, I need my rest. So, 7:30, 8, the first thing I do is I look at my phone, I check my email, I check my text message, I check my voicemail, I check Facebook, see what messages and things are out there. And then I start my list, whatever's on my list that needs to get done. I plan, When it comes to buyers, I make sure they're aware that, yeah, you can call and text me anytime, but typically we have to give some type of notice. So you can't call me at 1 o'clock in the afternoon and go, can I get into the house at 1:30? Like, that's not a realistic expectation. So that helps me manage time. But if you have 5 appointments during the day and you're 15 minutes early for each one of them, that gives you a good chunk of time to get work done. And you're going to be so much better at responding to people, because now you don't have this big list of stuff to look at. You have, okay, 15 minutes and now I'm in for, I go to my next appointment an hour later, I'm doing 15 minutes of phone calling, texting, and emailing. And that's been very helpful, but time blocking has been huge for showings.
Yeah, that's an amazing, that's really an amazing tip, that if you give yourself that time, you've just bought yourself some real concentrated, focused activity. Well, we're just beyond 1 minute beyond our 12:30. It always flies by so quickly.
Yes,
Tracy, thank you so much. This has really been an absolute pleasure. Karina, you did an amazing job today. Next week, we'll be having a replay, and then the first week, no, it is the first week. Next week is the first week, because we had a holiday off. So very excited to mention that Chris Bird is going to be on next week to do some up-to-date tax tips. And then we are having him later in the month. So it's going to be very exciting. If you know Chris Bird at all, you'll know, you also may have a couple of laughs. So please tune in next week, register, and we look forward to seeing you next week. Have a great week. And thank you.
Thank you, Tracy.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.